Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Thursday afternoon, we have Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, for an update on Nasdaq-100 levels. Brian, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and it's really quite the difference we've seen over the past couple of weeks with Nasdaq-100 performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, since the middle of June, the growth stocks in the Nasdaq-100 have really begun accelerating to the upside and outperforming its U.S. benchmarks, the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the Dow. And a large driver of that, I think, was the most recent FOMC in June. The Fed was more hawkish. We saw, a big rotation take place. It seemed to catch the fixed income markets a little bit off guard as well. So rates kind of collapsed. We saw financials move to the downside and other cyclicals as well, and rotation back into many of these, big tech names and high growth stocks.
All right, Brian, let's pull up your Bloomberg here. Take a look at some price action and some fresh levels to watch on the Nasdaq-100.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting if we highlighted the breadth. We touch on it lightly every now and then, but I think a lot has changed in the last week, and so we've been noticing or highlighting this downtrend. So as an NDX and other indices, have been making new highs, the percentage of stocks making 52-week highs within the index, hasn't been rising, and that changed this week on Tuesday or so, where we saw about 18% of the Nasdaq-100 breakout to fresh 52-week high. So we have a higher high here in the breadth, and this could just be the early stages of things to come. So initially, when we had this breakout, we weren't seeing that increase in 52-week highs, and now we are. So that's very different if you look at the other benchmarks, like the S&P 500, which itself has been breaking out over the last week, but still, only about 7% of the index is making new highs. Today, it's about 4%. We're not seeing any higher highs there. Same thing in the Russell 2000, although it's still consolidated in the base since March. But the breadth there is, making lower highs as far as 52-week highs go. And even the broader Russell 3000, which is making new highs, new in price, but the breadth we could see here is still, trading lower or declining lower. So I think that's definitely noteworthy. And I would not be surprised if we continue to see more and more stocks within the Nasdaq-100 start making new highs. We're just looking at here at the Philadelphia SOX index, the semiconductor index, and this is just beginning to break out this week as well. So semiconductors are now starting to break out. So, that breadth in the Nasdaq-100 is really starting to, improve, and we're not seeing that yet in the other indices. So I think this trend of where, growth is now outperforming value. This here is the ratio, which we've been highlighting, value over growth. When this line trends down, that means value is underperforming. Value gave up a key support level over the last week, and it's breaking down from a range that, breaking down below a line that was, in place for the last 12 months, initially acted as resistance, then support, and it broke that support this past week. So, the onus right now, I think, is on value to try and prove itself, and until it does so, I really like the setup here in the growth stocks in the Nasdaq-100. Not just because it's making new highs, but the number of companies participating in that move is now beginning to expand, and we're not seeing that yet in the other indices.
All right, Brian, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.